Game on, everybody, and welcome to another video. In this video, we're going to go ahead and talk about the weekly meta trends in Lorcana. But before we get started, I do want to quickly just remind everybody that this spreadsheet is available on my Discord. You guys can access it for free, and it gives the breakdown. I update it every day, and if this is something you guys are interested in keeping up with, please consider joining my Discord. It is completely free to access, and it goes through every single breakdown, every single meta list that kind of tops throughout the week. But in this video, I actually want to do something a little bit different. A quick shout out to all my supporters and Patreon subscribers. I appreciate everybody who does support me in that way. And if you guys could also do me a favor, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. We do talk about the weekly meta trends on this channel. And let's go ahead and show off the first deck. I kind of want to go ahead and showcase what I expect to see at the DLC in Vegas and in Birmingham. So the first list we're going to go ahead and talk about is, of course, probably the most represented deck that is likely to be seeing a lot of play. So this is not the end-all be-all build for all of these, but we're going to start with Amethyst Steel Song. A lot of people seem to be much more in favor of the Lanterns build. This is a very like Brandon DeCandio's list. It's not him who plays this, but it's a different version of it. You can see that there's a 4-3-2 split on like the 2-drops, and of course we have our staples such as Ariel, and this is also opting to play 4 Naveen's and 4 Whole New Worlds. So pretty standard Steel Song list. I quite like this one. I'm not too crazy about this. I do plan on playing a deck similar to this maybe for the DLC. Try not to spoil too much, but a lot of people seem to be on hype with Lantern, and rightfully so. I think a lot of people are prepping to play Lantern, and like if you guys bring this, you'll probably do fine, but this is kind of like 3 weeks old meta kind of style. So if you guys are playing this, don't be surprised that if people already have the hard counter for this. Speaking of the hard counter, this is probably going to be the most represented deck to counter Amethyst Steel is, of course, Ruby Sapphire. Specifically the ice block version. I've seen some versions run Chicha, I've seen versions run without. This one I'm just kind of showcasing as to what I'm kind of expecting to see, what these lists will play. I've seen some lists even drop Be Prepared and favor to play more stars. That's really kind of just like a flavor of like what you're trying to play around. Playing 2 Greatstone's Dragon in this build, I'm not too sure if that's actually also the correct ratio and such, but these are kind of showcasing different kind of decks that if I do see, if people were playing these types of decks, it's probably very close or similar as to what they're expected to see. I strongly think Chicha could see some play, but only maybe in like blue steel versions. But I do see some people really trying to use Chicha. Having her and Fishbone Quill just kind of gives you that extra draw power that you need, but it might not be too necessary. For this style of deck, especially if you're playing Visions of the Future, you can really kind of just dig into your answers to find what you need. But I expect to see this deck being played at both DLCs. So we'll just have to see how it goes from there. And another deck, old but gold. I did want to showcase this one because it is playing Elsa the Fifth Spirit, as if like this would be like the version that's playing it, and I think a lot of people are maybe going to be teching in V-King Undisputed as well. You may even see some Lady Tremaine. So I feel like a lot of decks, when you build in these like wider formats, or like you want to build for more consistent rather than toolbox. So this is kind of pretty standard in the sense of like maybe just to give you like if you're adding, if Ruby Amethyst is playing like set 5 cards, this is probably what the deck looks like. But for from what I've been seeing, most decks aren't even playing like set 5 cards at all. You can see this one is just playing the Elsa. I mean, that's kind of what it is. I've seen some decks even tech in like the smaller Sisus and then even more the bigger Sisus to counter Pete. So we'll have to see what those type of decks are like, what kind of ratios these kinds of decks are playing. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to another Rising Star deck. This one is also a very like competitive deck that's seeing a lot of popularity in the community. And for what I've seen most of the time when people are playing Emerald Amethyst, they're kind of teching in a bunch of like 1-ofs and 2-ofs, which is not necessarily wrong. It's just less consistent to see those kinds of cards. I like to showcase this build in particular just because it has a lot of useful tech 1-ofs, such as like Emerald Chromicon. I do like this card. I really feel like if you're playing an Emerald deck, that's a tempo oriented such as this one here, you should really just try to play 1. I've seen some decks even play 2. And Ana as the tech 1 of card. And remember, because you're playing the Amethyst package, you can really bounce a bunch of cards back. So seeing them can really get some extra additional value off of it. I do like this Ana card. I really think it's great. And it's playing a lot of toolboxy cards, but it's not going too overly crazy and over prepping for all the different kind of decks that you could see. It's really kind of maybe trying to target one specific angle. Pegasus in here. Pegasus is a great card only because it's evasive 1-drop, and it's basically what I like to call like sticky, in the sense of like it's really hard to take care of, and it facilitates that extra body that not only kind of quests for lore every turn, but it gives you that body to bounce with your Madam Mim cards. And then another deck that may not be too popular, but I do see people really trying to get this to run, but it's really kind of struggling to kind of get its foothold into the meta. So we have the Blue Steel deck, a fan favorite and whatnot, and I don't think it's necessarily relevant or correct to play 3 Whole New Worlds. This deck is very much a Whole New World deck, and Grab Your Swords doesn't seem that great as a 3 of. I've seen some people play just 1 or 2 copies at max. But this is one of the few decks that can successfully play Tinkerbell and also Mufasa. And it just has a very, very powerful draw engine as well with Flavershem and Fortisphere and Popsicle. So, and also the great ramp tool package. So this deck, it's kind of like the underdog in my opinion. It's still good. It just has like an uphill battle. It unfortunately struggles against Ruby Sapphire, so that's something to consider. It's only playing 2 Along Came Zeus. I feel like this is like a 3 of copies, so maybe cut down on Grab Your Swords. But Steel doesn't really have a problem with aggro. It's more of those really large bodies that are difficult to kind of get over. And I personally like Pete at 3 because you really don't want too many copies in your hand to clog up your play. It doesn't really necessarily benefit you having multiple copies in one turn. It's more of a just like if you see it, great, you play it on those opportune moments. So I wouldn't be surprised if I didn't see this deck in some form of representation. So really kind of, it has the ability to rise up. It's just unfortunate, like a weaker deck when playing against Ruby Sapphire. So it's still a good deck. But on to another deck. We're going to talk about another toolbox deck with Amethyst Steel. I like this deck as well. It can benefit a lot of on-play cards, such as like if you, and like it's more of a toolbox deck, that's for sure. And it also is one of the best decks to play the Floodborn Tinkerbell, and really kind of like abuse the Pete strategy. That kind of being one of your win cons for just playing Pete, bounce it back, and then play Pete again. So that's still a really great combo. And this deck can kind of be aggro, kind of be mid-range, kind of be control. But because it's so variable, this color combination you really have to build for a specific meta. And if it does have like its foothold to basically be built correctly for a specific metagame, it can shine. It's just really hard to kind of like make those meta calls because it's more of a reactive play kind of style deck too. So ultimately though, this is a great like color combination and deck combination. It just takes a really skilled pilot to kind of make those right meta calls into a given game, and just kind of take the, go game by game. And in a format where you need to win 2-0s consecutively or consistently to basically do well and get into day 2, this one kind of falls short in those kinds of aspects, but it's still possible to do it, especially if you're a skilled enough pilot to make things happen. And then on to Amber Emerald. This is probably what that color identity is. It's kind of like a sing together / discard kind of strategy. So much to be like, it's a color combination to be respected. And this deck combo can really give Steel Song a run for its money, in the sense of like it has to respect Ursula. If you play Emerald, if you play against Emerald, you can definitely expect to play against some Ursulas. And this one being able to play Under the Sea, Sing Together, with a great shift lines to kind of set yourself up. It's just like a really powerful combo to kind of push you into those late games, or into those late stages of the game, and push your way back. And then Lyle Tiberius, Rourke, hit when this character's on the board, and then all your characters are basically getting banished and challenged. It really kind of helps you claw your way back. I really do like this card. I think it's a great card. Imagine if so on play it gives a card or your like a character chosen opposing character reckless. That's a very powerful card in order to counter aggro strategy. And then if your cards are also being removed, it's calling you back up. And then comboing it with the Prince John, Sudden Chill, and You Have Forgotten Me. It's just great discard synergy that gives you so much card advantage. So even teching in cards, like this is one of the best decks to play Diablo. So Diablo is still one of those cards that needs to be respected. And overall, this is also a great build and how I expect to see Emerald Amber to be played. What I'm not sure about, and I have two examples here, is we're going to move on with Emerald Steel. So we have Emerald Steel, and this version is the discard version, I believe. Yeah, so this is the discard version where it has cards such as Prince John and Friar Tuck and Anna that kind of goes in and plays with those synergies to basically you get benefit, or the player gets benefit from forcing your opponent to discard. And the reason why I was like torn between showcasing like this card or this version or another version is because I truthfully don't know if Emerald Steel players are playing something similar to this or something similar to this, where it's Floodborne heavy, deciding to play Morph or not. So if you see Morph, more likely they're playing Floodborne version. If you see Chief Bogo, they're for sure on this version. And it's just like doing a lot of like chip damage over time, really kind of taking care of those like go wide boards, because this does have the facility or the cards and the combos to deal with those kinds of cards. But really hard for me to kind of pinpoint, like if I see Emerald Steel, I sometimes play into like, all right, I can't give them an opportunity to discard my hand, so I play the board, and then I end up being like, oh, surprise, look, it's the Chief Bogo or it's the Floodborne ping damage deck, and it's like, it is what it is. So really hard to kind of get a pulse on this one, just because both are kind of seeing the similar amount of success. So but it's not like a represent. I don't know if you guys noticed this. I'm kind of going from most represented to least represented decks that I've made in the top cut. Anyways, on to another deck. We have Amber Ruby. So of course people do love their Mufasa decks, and there's technically two versions, but when people think Amber Ruby, it's always going to be, or not always, it's likely to be the Mufasa variants. You guys know my opinions about the Mufasa deck. It should be one of those decks that are respected, but I just think that there are better decks in the meta that can do what it does. But if people are playing Mufasa, this is probably something that you'll see. I kind of dug deep into a lot of these other decks as to what I think the best versions are of each one, give or take. You know, it's just my opinion. So if you guys see Amber Ruby, there is the Amber Ruby song deck. I'm a personal big fan of that, but more than likely if you play against a Mufasa deck or an Amber deck with Mufasa, this is probably what it's gonna look like. And then on to one of my personal favorite decks that I wish I was brave enough to play, but it's not consistent for me, but people are seeing success for this. I just couldn't get over the 50% win rate, or like I was at 50% personally for this one. So, but we have the Sapphire Amethyst bounce deck, kind of like a bounce ramp style deck. It's just got some really like solid cards that can kind of controls the board. In my personal build, I did play Merlin, so maybe that's why I'm trying to high roll it and such. But this definitely has some great tools to kind of give yourself that advantage. I do love that one drop Cogsworth, and then comboing it with Merlin Crab. This one playing 4 copies notably, because trying to respect those really high willpower characters, because it does seem to be that a lot of characters are just really big statted one way or the other, and that way you can get multiple quests per turn off of characters. So this is probably, if you see a Amethyst Sapphire deck, this is probably what it looks like. And then on to our last deck, of course we have to talk about the Hyper Aggro deck. This is probably what it's going to be. It was super hyped and it has to be respected. A lot of people were teching their decks to counter this specific deck. Daisy Duck, of course, being a card that could see play in Amber Steel in those more aggressive forms. But talk about aggro, this is probably what it's supposed to be. So if you are playing Ruby Sapphire, you basically can win by turn 4 provided all your combos go well with this, and this is probably what it's going to be like. So let me know what you guys are expecting in the meta. I just want to go ahead and quickly say thank you everybody for watching throughout this video. Please consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribe for more meta breakdown videos. If you guys are going to be in the DLC in Vegas, I will be there, so feel free to come and say hi to me, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm out of here.